So I'm now thrilled to be able to pass over to my colleague here at CATS Cambridge. Our principal, Dominic Tomalin, is going to be interviewing Dr. Alex George. And Dr. Alex is the UK's Youth Mental Health Ambassador, and he's also an A&E doctor, and he's been working on the front line over the last year or so. Dr. Alex is campaigning to get mental health on the UK curriculum. So it's fantastic work. And this interview coming up is going to be focusing on how we can best promote positive mental health in schools. So over to you, Dominic Tomalin.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dominic Tomalin. I'm the principal at CATS Cambridge. CATS Cambridge is an international college located near the heart of Cambridge in the UK. We have about 400 students from all over the world. At any one time, we have students from 50 to 60 different nationalities, and we get our students really from where they've got to a competitive university application. However, our focus is not just about getting our young people to university. It is about ensuring that they leave us equipped for life, able to make the most of the opportunities that come their way, but also able to navigate the challenges and obstacles that inevitably happen to everyone. We are delighted to be representing the UK on Global Wellness Day. Happy Global Wellness Day to everyone. And as ever, we say yes to the 7-Step Manifesto. We take wellness and well-being very, very seriously here at the college. I'm joined today by Dr. Alex George, UK Government Ambassador for Youth Mental Health. Happy Global Wellness Day to you, Alex.
And you too, and as well to everyone that's watching, and thank you for everyone taking their time. Very important, I think, that we focus on well-being. I think it's been a huge there's been a huge change, I think, over the years now, that it's something we've realised goes hand in hand with success and academia, doesn't it? So yeah, brilliant.
I think that's exactly right, Alex. And I guess my first question for you is really to talk about the fact that mental health does feel like it's everywhere. It perhaps feels a little bit like a new endemic that perhaps has arrived, coincided a bit with the pandemic. But is it that there is more and more mental illness issues, or are we just talking about it? Are we just better at communicating?
So I think a good thing to start with is almost thinking about what is mental health, and as a kind of definition point, because I think the word is used, and we've seen it a lot in the media, the papers, on social media, people talking about it, but what does it really mean? And I think sometimes mental health is associated often with mental illness, which obviously is a part of it, but actually it's much wider than that. And ultimately, to me, mental health is kind of the state of someone's well-being, their happiness, the general feeling of health, and kind of an absence of illness, really, in that sense. And I think that's why it's very important to separate mental health from mental illness. And that is exactly why I say, everyone has mental health, in the same way we have physical health. We all have thoughts, have feelings, have emotions. Every day, every moment, we're all experiencing those things, and I think it's very important that we begin to realise that. And one of the things I think the pandemic has done it's kind of brought everyone's attention to that fact. People start thinking, well, well-being is actually very important. Gosh, the stress of the pandemic has impacted everyone, and so I think that is, out of all the negatives of the pandemic, I think a positive is that people have had much more realisation that this really is something that we all have to think about, and not just about when things go wrong, about when you're feeling bad or down or something happens, but looking after yourself to optimize your life, to feel happier and to keep yourself feeling good. And to answer the second, part of that question about whether we're facing, a mental health crisis or, an endemic, I guess, in terms of mental illness. I think we're certainly seeing rising numbers of cases of mental illness. I mean, if you take the stat of 1 in 9 children roughly had a diagnosis of mental health condition, kind of pre-pandemic, and over the last few years, it's now increased to around 1 in 6, which is quite significant over that period of time. And in fact, the concern is that might actually become worse post-pandemic lifting. So yes, absolutely, I think we're seeing increasing rates of mental illness, but I think we should see the positive side as well, and try and see that actually what are we going to do about this. How can we take care of ourselves better? How can we make people more comfortable to speak and reach out when they're struggling? And of course, focusing on the resourcing and funding as well is a big aspect.
I guess one of the reasons why it's come to the forefront is because we as a species have created an ecology for ourselves through technological advance that is rushing forward at great pace, certainly faster than we can manage or evolve our biology, physiology, psychology to adapt to it. And I just wonder whether you have any thoughts about how we might be better managing that situation.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, technological advances are just you just can't keep up with it, actually. I mean, day by day there are advances. There's new apps, there's new internet advances, there's new social media and networking advances, and it's just unbelievable. And as you say, like, humans evolve, and we adapt very quickly, but we evolve very slowly, really, and it takes a long time to change. And a lot of the fundamentals of what we need, in our own well-being, to have food, to have water, to have natural light, to have some exercise, to have social interaction, to have a sense of purpose. All these things are kind of fundamentals of our well-being, but technology sometimes pulls us away from that. Our mobile phones have algorithms to keep us on networking and social media apps. The social media shining blue light in our eyes is keeping us awake at night. It's showing us content that sometimes is polarizing, because if you think about it, if Instagram only showed you content that was very neutral and not that exciting, you wouldn't be staying on the app. But if it shows you stuff that makes you angry or sad, or reacting basically to content, then it keeps you online. So we're being stimulated constantly by the advances in technology, and therefore we have to learn to control that. Technology is amazing, but learning when to switch offline, how to manage it, being aware of what it's doing. I think there was the fantastic Netflix documentary. It was the Social Network, I think it was called, and they were looking at the impacts of social media on people. I think a big part of what we can do to combat is just be aware of it, just know that there are algorithms, and that we actually have to set our own boundaries to kind of come away from the phone, basically.
And I think there's something in there about being educated about our brain chemistry and understanding that the way our brain has evolved is for a very, very different environment. It's often talked about the dopamine kick that comes from some of the strategies used by social media. It's not just about getting rid of social media, though. I think it's here to stay. It's really about how we manage it. So for young people, how would you suggest they go about managing their use of social media?
I agree entirely, and I think if I hear people saying, well, do we scrap it, do we ban it, what do we do? You can't, the cat's out of the bag. I mean, it's here to stay. And not only that, social media is going to be such an important part of businesses, jobs. I mean, even medicine now, we're teaching online, we're using Instagram to educate, well, look what's happened throughout the pandemic. Doctors using social media to actually inform the public. So it's not going anywhere. So all we've got to do is learn to adapt it, learn to use it to advantage, learn to manage it when it's causing us problems, and learn when to put it down. So for me, I think, let's bring it back to, young people at school or college, or university. I think the important things is creating boundaries around social media. The first thing I would say is think about why. Why are you using it? Why are you online? Is it because you want to learn? Is it for academia? Is it to have fun? Is it to laugh? Is it to have memories or connections? And really understand why you're using it, because sometimes people are just on apps, like TikTok or whatever, and they're just scrolling through, but there's no real understanding of what you're really there for. You're just kind of engaged in this process. And then have a think about curating your platform. So I would challenge anyone watching right now, if you walk away and do one thing, look at your Instagram and scroll through the people you're following, go to your following list, and ask yourself the question, are these people that I'm following, do they make me feel good? Are they teaching me things? Are they adding anything to my life? If they're not, unfollow. And I also tell people, if that is me and you are following me and I'm not helping you, unfollow me. Because different counts, and depending what you're online for, that you might be there and you want to learn about nature, you might be there, want to laugh, you want to watch, funny videos on TikTok, that's fine. But if you're actually being shown content that's not helping you, and worst of all, it's actually causing you harm, then unfollow that account. And when I say boundaries, create boundaries around time. I think the two important hours of the day to make sure you're offline are the first hour and the last hour of the day. Let's start with the evening time. When we go to bed, you talked about dopamine hits, which I think is a big, very important thing. So dopamine's our kind of like reward center of our brain. This is exciting. I've seen a funny video on TikTok. It's firing off this dopamine. Dopamine keeps us awake. when we're going to bed, we need to be going to sleep. So environments that are conducive with sleep are low light, low sound, avoiding blue light, and calm. And this is the exact opposite that a phone in your face does for you. So trying to avoid the phone before bed, very, very important. We also know that if you use a phone before bed, it impacts on your quality of sleep, because of the way it stimulates the brain. It actually affects your processing ability at night. So it can actually mean you don't have a good quality of sleep, as well as the length. The other time of the day is very important, is the morning, because when you wake up in the morning, you are a blank piece of paper, kind of like my shirt here today. You're a blank, you're fresh to the world. If you roll over and pick up your phone and you look on media and you see something about the government, or something that's really making you angry, or you look on your Instagram, something is making you jealous or frustrated, you're instantly impacting your day based on what is on your phone, which is a terrible way to start the day. Challenge yourself to have an hour in the morning where you don't look at your phone. You wake up, you have your shower, your breakfast, you have your morning walk, whatever it is. Get yourself set and anchored into the day before you pick up your phone. You'll notice a big difference, actually, I think.
I guess the other observation I have about some of the young people I have at my college is a lot of them are very enthusiastic about the number of likes they have and the number of followers they have. I have some concerns that they compromise on who they are in the pursuit of likes. What advice would you give to those students?
Well, I'm really glad to see that. I think actually, and I think in the last day or so, Instagram has now allowed everyone to turn off the likes if they want to on their posts, which is very important. And what I would say, and it's very interesting, because before I went on the show on Love Island years ago, I didn't use social media hardly at all. I had like 200 followers, and I love teaching. Actually, I've always and I actually try and teach my platform. I loved education. You teach medical students at the university and things. I absolutely loved it, but I avoided social media. When you come off the show and all of a sudden, the likes come into play, and you've got these dopamine hits. We're all human, and it's like this element of, I was like, what is going on here? Like, I had to kind of sit within myself and think, what is happening? And you have to almost kind of remind yourself, like, wow, this is an algorithm. This is trying to like convince me that likes somehow mean that your content is good. What I would argue is that if you are creating content online, if you're posting things, post what you genuinely believe in, what you like, okay, and what you think this actually represents something I'm passionate about, I enjoy, or even if you're taking a picture of beautiful surrounding, if that means something to you, post it. Some of the things that are most important to me, and I think the biggest things that some of the biggest things I've posted in terms of what's important to me, I've had some of the least likes about. But that doesn't mean the content that you've done isn't important, and it doesn't mean something. Because the way I see it is, if I post something, for example, about mental health, and it might not have massive likes or whatever, but if it helps some, even 10 people, and it makes an impact in their life, that is far more valuable than posting a picture of me in an outfit that has loads of likes but doesn't actually help anyone. So I mean, just that's what I would say, is just think about why. Again, back to that question, why are you on the platform? What are you doing with it? And just post what you want to. Just be authentic, and don't worry about the likes too much. Just be aware that algorithm is constantly trying to trigger it, and just step away from that a little bit.
So, Alex, here we are on Global Wellness Day. We are talking to a global audience. In my school, as I said at the beginning, we run with between 50 and 60 different nationalities. There are tremendous differences in cultural perspectives on mental health and mental illness. How in a multicultural setting should we go about managing people's mental health going forward without running into some of the issues to do with different cultural perspectives?
Well, I think the interesting thing, again, if we go back to the word mental health, and I actually am not the biggest fan of the word. It's just the currency that people can understand at the moment. But as you step back from that, what you're talking about really is presenteeism. It's being in the moment. It's feeling at peace. It's feeling at one with the world, one with the people around you. And I think that's unified in most cultures. It's talked about in different ways. It's represented in different teachings. But I think the concepts are very, very similar. And what we want really is for people to feel happy and healthy. And I think, again, that's represented across a lot of society. And I think, when I talk about it, and I think particularly in the school context, it's about looking after your well-being. So it's the basics of being, at one with nature, making sure you're actually getting time in green spaces. You're moving your body, you're having exercise. We know that the body and mind is very much connected. The fact that you're eating well, we know that diet plays a huge impact in our mental health. Sleep, very, very important. And then social connections, whether that's managing social media or connecting better in more meaningful ways. And I think that actually, those core concepts and fundamentals of well-being, is similar across most cultures. So I think it's just finding ways that people connect with that and understand that, and I think that will be beneficial for everyone, regardless of where you're from.
And Alex, I think that notion of well-being and the bringing together of mind and body is tremendously powerful and important. You talk a lot about the physical to mental, so physical issues becoming mental issues. I was wondering whether you could just explore a little bit about how mental issues may manifest as physical issues, and how that kind of thing should be managed.
Yes, I talk a lot about how I think it's very, very, very difficult, if not almost impossible, to separate physical and mental health. And I use the example of the football player, and I'll try and talk about that now. So, I mean, I work in the A&E department, and a lot of people think, well, actually, as an emergency doctor, we just deal with physical issues. Actually, we see a lot of mental health, but most of the physical issues come with a mental component or impact. So let's take, for example, the football player that I see come in, and they've had a really nasty fracture to their ankle, and they're likely not to be able to play football for a long period of time. I'm seeing a physical problem, a broken ankle, which I'm going to fix. But what the patient's seeing is the impact on their favourite hobby, and what they do every Saturday, and what gives them happiness and purpose and joy each week. And that impact for them is going to be far greater on their mental health probably than their physical health. So there's that connection there. But if you think about it the other way around and think, well, if someone's feeling quite sad, they're not themselves, they're probably not eating very well, they don't feel like exercising, they're not really connecting with the people around them, it's going to impact their physical health. They might put on weight, they might gain weight, become obese. They might then have physical problems like heart conditions, cholesterol, and all the kind of risks of physical illness because they're mental illness. And all of that intertwines in one. And then because someone might gain weight or they feel a certain way, that can then impact again on their mental health. So you can't really separate the two. They're so interconnected, and usually if you impact on one, impacts on the other. And in a positive sense, if you look at it on the positive side, if you have a hobby and you like, say, playing tennis, when you go out and play tennis, you're playing the sport, the heart rate's getting high, the blood's flowing, it's really great physically. But that has a benefit on your mental health as well. The blood flows to your brain, you get the hit of dopamine, you get the adrenaline release, and then afterwards the endorphins that come with that exercise, and you feel a sense of clarity. So that's benefiting on your mental health. And the more that you feel good in yourself, the more that you want to exercise. So actually, if you create that positive cycle, there's a real benefit. But there's certainly, I think it's very difficult to separate the two. The impact on each other, really.
Alex, you've got a great new book out, Living Well Every Day. And looking through it, I spotted some parallels with the 7-step manifesto. Walk for an hour each day, drink more water, don't use plastic bottles, eat healthy
Water, very
food.
important.
Yeah, very good. Do a good deed, have a family dinner with loved ones. I tend to add, have that dinner without your phone, and then go to sleep at 10. I guess we've explored a few of those aspects before. It would be useful if you could just draw perhaps the link between doing a good deed and perhaps having a family meal without that mobile phone, and well-being.
Yeah, let's start with the good deed. I think that one of the most powerful things you can do for your own mental health, your own happiness, your sense of purpose and being, is to be kind to other people. Acts of giving, acts of genuine, I'm doing this for someone else, for no benefit of my own, it triggers something deep within us as human beings. There is something within that. And if you think about moments, if you think of celebratory times of year, whether in religion or whether it's moments of birthdays, etc., it's that feeling of giving to someone else, and then gifting someone else actually often feels so much better than receiving a gift. Or when you've gone and seen someone that needs help, an elderly lady in help across the road, and you've helped across the road in that moment. It's taking you a few moments, but the rest of the day you feel that sense of that it's a warmth within you that you've done something kind. And I would say, if you can have a look at your life and think about what you can do for other people, how can you impact on the society around you, community around you? I mean, we've seen it during the pandemic. People have been on furlough volunteering at food banks, and people have gone back to work and carried on volunteering at the food banks. Why have they done that? Because there is a genuine sense of community, of feeling I feel good because I'm doing something for other people. So that's really important. I agree with the connections. I think one of the things we've all missed is that sense of family and sitting around the table, and social media particularly. Again, technology is constantly drawing our attention left and right, looking away, stopping us being in the moment. Trying to have that phone-free space, that dinner time where you're in the moment, in the present, which we talk about, with the people around you, listening, talking, and feeling that sense of connection. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter what the phone's doing and all the kind of technology, doesn't matter how that is and how much development there is in that space. The importance of family and feeling, a sense of belonging to each other is, transformational for our mental health. So let's not lose that.
Thank you so much, Alex. You've joined us. You've really helped us celebrate Global Wellness Day here at CATS Cambridge. I wish you happy Global Wellness Day once again.
Thank you. Happy Global Wellness Day to yourself and to everyone watching as well, of course, and everyone at CATS.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex. And back over to you, Chantal.